Am I the asshole for not taking my friend to the airport for not giving me enough notice? So here's the story. I have a good friend. He texts me yesterday at 2 p.m. asking me, can you do me favor? Then at 5 p.m. when I see it I say, yo, what's up? At 7:30 p.m. he texts me, wide tomorrow morning? At 8:52 p.m. I text him, probably running. Why do you need help with something? At 9 p.m. he texts me and finally asks me, I was gonna ask if you can take me to the airport, rolling on the floor laughing. After the last text I sent him I stopped looking at my messages and I went to sleep at 10:30 p.m. I wake up and see that he sent me a text at 12:30 a.m. saying, just so you know, you hoe for that unamused. That's $40 out my pocket. Am I really the asshole for not taking him to the airport? Sure, I could have been more attentive to my phone last night, but at the same time he could have been more direct with me and asked me in the first or second message instead of dragging it along all day. He also could have asked me a day or two prior. Edit. Looks like I've gotten about 0% you are the asshole, 95% not the asshole, and 5% ash. Edit. The day after he said that he was trolling, I don't believe, and that he asked me too late. Not the asshole, his first message should have included all of the information, if not then he had another chance at 7:30. He needs to be more upfront with his communication. Not the asshole. If you need something short notice you don't use a method of communication you only return every 5-7 business days. That was one text worth of question. Hey, what are you doing tomorrow morning? I need a ride to the airport at Zam. If he's not gonna respond for hours he should get to the point. Not the asshole. I'm assuming he knew before 2 p.m. the day before that he needed a ride. And even so, he should have asked directly in that first text. Why was he being so vague and spreading out his texts by hours? People might give you a hard time for taking 2 hours to respond. But when someone says, can you do me a favor, without saying what it is, the answer should either be no, or do exactly what you did. Masterfully played. If they can beat around with the request you can beat around with the deny. Not the asshole. It's his responsibility to get to the airport. Presumably he booked his flight in advance but he couldn't be bothered to make the necessary arrangements to get to the flight. Not the asshole. He should have asked for a ride the airport in the first text. I was going to say there's no reason for him not to, but the reason is, he wanted to trap you into admitting you weren't busy before asking the favor, so that you couldn't say you were busy. Am I the asshole for telling my mom I've had enough and won't be visiting again for a while? My son, 8, and I, 40 female, flew home for the school holidays. I would have been content not to see my brother and his family, but I agreed to spend the weekend with them as my son and mom enjoy spending time with them. My nephew, 6, had been unwell overnight. I questioned how sick he was and whether we should be going. I didn't want us to get sick for our own sake, but also because he wouldn't be able to see his family. Mom was annoyed but spoke to my brother, who said nephew was fine, they were just tired after a rough night, we should still come. Mom and I were going to look after all the kids on Saturday night while my brother and his wife went to a party. Probably why he was so keen for us to come. They hadn't factored us into their weekend otherwise. My hesitation was met with an icy demeanor from Mom, so I agreed to go, lest the rest of our trip be ruined by her mood. When we arrived it was clear my nephew was still quite unwell. He was on the lounge with a sick bucket. My brother even remarked, yeah, he's really unwell. Turns out he'd been vomiting overnight with a fever. My mother made it clear through her demeanor and tone that I was meant to pretend all was fine. I was too furious and uncomfortable to do that. Similar scenarios have happened before, resulting in my son, husband, and I becoming quite unwell. My brother then left with the kids to pick his daughter, 9, up from her first birthday party of the day. I told my mom it was really disrespectful that they'd done this again, and that I was absolutely furious. I could have been more calm and more diplomatic, but the gaslighting and denial of my right to be and express upset was too much. I asked for their street address so I could book a taxi home for me and my son. She insisted that she would leave too, although she eventually agreed that I could drive her car back if my brother could drive her home on the Sunday. He couldn't do that as he and his wife had too many plans, notwithstanding our visit. So we all left and the rest of our stay with her, 2 days, was either silent treatment or ice-cold responses. I tried to talk to her about how hurtful it was to be treated like that, which only made it worse. I told her we won't be coming back for a while and, although I didn't say this, I've decided we'll stay in a hotel when we do return. Not the asshole. Your brother is a terrible parent and friend to everyone else they exposed to the stomach flu your nephew had. They tend to be very easily transmitted and not everyone at those parties is going to be able to bounce back after being exposed. They should have been isolating till nephew was better. I wouldn't visit again. I'd let her visit you for the next while where you have the control to stay or go. That she sulked for days after would just reaffirm how little she cares about you. Not the asshole. I think I would have a sit down with mom and ask her, Mom, please explain to me your thought process on this situation? Why in the world would you want to take the risk of getting sick yourself by watching brother's child, knowing he is sitting there with a vomit bucket and that he would probably want to be with his parents more so than anyone when he is not feeling that well? Why are you so upset with me over this situation? I mean, did you ever once as your parent yourself think, oh, I'm going to go out to a party and leave my sick kid at home with someone else, knowing that they would probably want to be with me versus whoever was watching them? Info. So you visiting your brother would have been just, yeah, free babysitting, for him not even trying to hang out with you? And he tried to push his sick child on you too? Definitely not the asshole. You see where the priorities are in this family and you are just a drag along for that. Your mom can visit you, if she wants to, but you don't have to go there, even fly there and then being a free babysitter and being met with ice cold ignoring for the rest of the stay. You should have left home. The first day, she tried to pull the silent treatment on you and leave to a hotel. But yeah, I think it is easier to say after than in the situation itself. Not the asshole. You do not invite people over when someone's having a stomach bug, for Christ's sake. My experience is that trying to explain why you are hurt only really works if the other person does not genuinely know or understand and is interested in hearing. In this case, your mother probably knew and understood but disagreed. I'm not sure I understand why your mother took it so much to heart. Kids get sick and plans change. Why was this such a big deal to her? Why was it so important to her that you stay despite the kid being obviously sick? You don't even need to visit your mom. Why WBTA if you continue to spend time with your mom period? Sharing genetic material doesn't give her a free pass to treat you however she wants and you had to take it. You need to grow a spine, my dear, and realize she will never treat you the way you deserve. Not the asshole. You asked for clarification that your nephew wasn't really that sick and it was made out to be no big deal, but that was a blatant lie. You said this wasn't the first time something like this happened. You gave another chance to correct it, and behold, nothing changed. Your reaction was setting a boundary. You don't want your family getting sick because of someone's negligence to communicate truthfully and effectively. To your mom, it might not sound like a big deal, but it really is. You also mentioned that your mom got annoyed when you asked for clarification on how your nephew was sick and you went ahead with the trip to not ruin the mood. It sounds like this situation has happened before and had a similar result. Would I be the asshole if I keep using an accent when I speak English? I, 21F, have recently moved from my country to a different one and I've been using English to get by. It's my second language. I learned it at school as a child, but I also watched a lot of American TV shows and listened to music, so it was kind of easy to imitate the words being said. At some point I felt like I was happy with my progress and confident enough to speak anywhere. A few days ago, I met a few people from the US, 19-21-year-olds. And one of them told me it was weird for me to speak with an accent and use words typically related to American slang like ain't, and y'all, and others like those. Just a disclaimer, I don't use any bad words or anything and I'm familiar with any terms that I'm not supposed to say, so it wasn't about this. Like I know very well what I must avoid saying. I have been chronically online for ages. Anyways, basically no one really disagreed with him and I felt pretty embarrassed. I guess I seemed like some wannabe, so I get why they might be uncomfortable even though a few of them had praised me before, so I wasn't checking myself while I talked. I get it, but also can't help but feel like it's unfair. I'm kind of uncomfortable about myself now because I feel like I may need to learn English again, and I'm also unsure how I could take out regular words from my vocabulary because I speak without thinking too much. Yesterday, I got invited again to hang out with everyone, but I'm still feeling pretty down. Would I be the asshole if I continued to speak this way? I'm so confused because for me, if someone spoke my language, which has many accents, in my accent I would be happy, but I fully understand if this is not the case for others. I just want some fresh perspective because I kind of feel like I'm not being given grace, but at the same time I don't want to offend anybody by acting entitled or something. So their complaint is that you sound too American? Not the asshole, but those people are. As an American, that's rich. My school taught us to pick a Spanish accent to try and mimic it for better fluency. So we can be taught to grab accents, but someone can't grab ours? Nah, I'm from the region that uses y'all and ain't, so I'll use my authority to bless your accent LMAO. Good job learning another language. Not the asshole. It's very normal for people to learn English through English spoken media and to pick up the accent from what they watch or listen to. It's also normal for English-speaking people to pick up different forms of regionalized slang depending on the environment they're in. I'm Canadian and live in England and have picked up a lot of English-isms that I wouldn't necessarily know back home. If someone behaves like a jerk toward you speaking English how you do, ask them how many languages they can speak. Not the asshole, you did nothing wrong, and unfortunately, what you met are people who are commonly called ugly Americans. People who go to other nations and are rude. They were rude to you, bottom line. You do you and speak as you wish. Not the asshole. That guy is just a sheltered baby with unexamined xenophobia. It would be great if someone confronted him about those remarks, but if the group dynamics don't allow for it, then it's going to be hard to get it across to him. Not the asshole. I'm an American working with all non-Americans. If one of my coworkers busted out a y'all, I might be a bit amused, but I'd never in a million years be offended by it. For that matter, even if it was mocking, as long as I didn't feel like it was targeting me specifically, I wouldn't care. America's an incredibly powerful country, and sometimes it throws its weight around in ways that are pretty obnoxious. Why shouldn't non-Americans get to mock it a bit? Am I the asshole for letting my sister use my husband's office to study while he wasn't even in the country? My younger sister is temporarily living with us, and she was having a hard time studying because my 3-year-old son would constantly interrupt and ask her to play with him whenever she was studying in the living room, kitchen. She asked if she could use my husband's office so he wouldn't bother her, and I agreed since my husband wasn't in the country. He lives abroad about 70% of the time, at the time anyway. I don't think I did anything wrong, but my husband came home as a surprise before the office had been cleaned up, and he was angry at me for letting her use it without asking him first. Like I said, he wasn't in the country and he wasn't supposed to visit anytime soon, so I thought it would be fine since it's not like he needed it at the time. He doesn't see it the same way and thinks I should have asked first since it's his office. We've had a few arguments over this with neither of us budging. Admittedly, in our last fight I did get angry and tell him he shouldn't even have a home office since he's barely home, which did unfortunately escalate the fight. Part of the reason I said that is because my husband was never happy about my sister living here, even though it's had a very minimal impact on him, and I feel like he's using this office situation as an opening to send her back home. I've already bought a desk for her room so she can study in there, but am I the asshole? You are the asshole. You know your husband didn't want your sister staying in the house, and she has her own home, and you let her use your husband's office. Now you've bought her a desk for her room, which sounds like you're making this situation more permanent. Try this when you talk to him next. I'm really sorry. I know that's your space and I should have asked you before letting her use it. Your issue with whether or not he should even have an office at all is a different argument. He has one and you should ask him first before letting someone outside of your marriage use it. Also, I was thinking she was sleeping on the couch or something. She has her own room. All this time, if she couldn't study in the living room or kitchen, she should have been studying there. Sorry, but you are the asshole. I think you lost this argument with the phrase, "My husband was never happy about my sister living here." You knew he wouldn't have approved and you did it anyway. You are the asshole. No matter what the situation is between you and your husband, why is he not living with you 70% of the time? That was his space. All you had to do was send a quick text to discuss. Also, why are you letting your 3-year-old bother your sister when you know she has to study? That child is your responsibility. Take him into your bedroom for a bit, or his own bedroom, and play with him. Why couldn't sister study in the place she is sleeping in? You do not need a desk to study. Neither of you budging? Why is it so hard to just say you're sorry? That you didn't realize it would bother him and you will change the way you communicate about this stuff going forward? And why is your sister living there if he isn't happy about it? Nothing about this is functional. His office. You should have asked first. Also, if sis is living with you, why can't she study in her room? You are the asshole.